Hello friends, welcome to Objective English. Today in this video, we are going to talk about the second unit of Soft Skills BAS 105. Here in this unit, there are 8 topics: active listening, traits of a good listener, listening modes, listening and notes taking, types of listening, listening techniques using TED Talk audio listening with script reading, pronunciation, speaking style, content and sequencing. So you see here in this unit there are a number of topics which are very important. These are the 3 topics: active listening, traits of a good listener, listening modes. So only these 3 topics we are going to take. So let's get started. You see here, smart people talk while wise people listen. It is said by Confucius. So listening becomes more important. You also know, out of these 4 language skills, listening is the most important skill. So that is right to say, smart people talk while wise people listen. So wise people believe in listening more. Listening is also one of the most important components, or you can say elements of communication process, right? Because without listening there cannot be communication. So listening is decoding process. There are 2 processes of communication: encoding and decoding. Decoding is done by listening and encoding is done by speaking. So without listening, there is no communication process. And it is very important and mandatory for effective communication also. So listening becomes very important skill. Coming to the next point about listening skills, Mr. Floyd J. James said, he said less listening capacity is a main source of origin of the problems related with the work at every level. So less listening can communicate less. Less listening can create miscommunication also. So in communication, listening becomes very much important, right? Listening is the most important skill. The another point is this. And employees, in the companies consume more time than the other skills, namely reading skill, writing, speaking. Except all these, listening consumes more time. So listening is important skill. There is a difference between active listening and hearing. Hearing is something what we don't understand. Here message is not understood. In a classroom, suppose you are reading anything and there is a noise outside. So you hear that noise but you don't understand, you don't decode that noise. So here message is not understood. Passive listening causes barriers to communication. Passive listening is one type of hearing when someone is not attentive. When someone is not attentive to listening, this is called passive listening, and that can create several barriers to communication. You must understand that listening and hearing, these are 2 different processes. In hearing, there is no concentration because message is not understood, right? While in active listening, message is understood. Hearing is automatic. It is automatic process. You don't pay attention to words. It automatically comes. So hearing is automatic. Suppose while teaching, I am just hearing the noise of the fan, but I'm not paying attention to that. So it is hearing, and it is involuntary physical act. It is not voluntary. Hearing masses is not decoded. In hearing, masses is not decoded. Whereas in listening, message is decoded. So once you listen, suppose in a classroom when your teacher says anything, you try to analyze and then you understand. That is called decoding process. So in listening, there is decoded process. Listening is a decoded process. Hearing includes only perceiving the sounds but not understanding that sound. It has no meaning at all. Listening is conscious and active process, while hearing is unconscious and passive process, you can say, just opposite to that. Coming to the another point, listening. Now here we are just going to talk about listening. In language skills LSRW, listening is the most important skill, right? And that's why God has given us one mouth but two ears and eyes. So it means we should listen more, speaking less and listening more. That must be the principle of a wise person. It is already said by Confucius. Be considerate and comprehend others' viewpoint. Because when you will listen to, you will be considerate to others and you will understand what the other person is saying. When you listen, you create empathy too. So, in listening, there is empathy, there is consideration, there is comprehension, and that's why listening becomes most important skill. Coming to the next slide, here is a direct comparison between hearing and active listening, or listening you can say. So it is hearing and it is listening. Now you can find out it is just the opposite of that, right? Hearing is not a decoding activity, while listening is a decoding activity. It is automatic process, while it is conscious and planned process. It requires no effort because it is involuntary. It requires much effort and energy because whatever is being said, you listen, you analyze, and then you understand. It is passive in nature while listening is always active in nature. It is one way because no response is received in return, while it is a two-way process where sending of the message is as important as receiving the response. So we give response only when we listen. Just after listening, we give response. So it is a two-way process. It contains no important information, while in listening process, it contains important information. Right? So that is the difference between hearing and listening. Now coming to the another topic, traits of a good listener. This may be a question in your examination. What do you mean by a good listener? Suggest some traits of a good listener. So there are some important traits of a good listener. The other traits you can also find it out. It is general, right? So the very first trait of a good listener is concentration. A good listener concentrates his focus on the message, what is being said. The second is interest. He takes much interest in listening, and this is one of the most important characteristic of a good speaker, also a good listener also. Careful listening. He believes in careful listening. He decodes each and every part of the message what is being said. So careful listening is one of the traits of a good listener. Appreciation, sorry, curiosity is also the another trait of a good listener. He just wants to know more. He takes interest and he is very much interested in listening. The another trait is appreciation. He appreciates the speaker for his speaking. Good listener always appreciate the speaker, right? And the another is reflection. Reflection simply means that what they listen, they reflect by their body language, by their facial expressions. For example, when a teacher teaches in a class, the student who are listening to, they just reflect that message through their faces. They give feedback to the teacher by their faces by using non-verbal means of communication. So reflection is also one of the traits of a good listener. Coming to the another one, modes of listening. Yes, this is important. There are only two modes of listening, right? The modes of listening includes active listening, wherein the listener is very much active. He pays attention to each and everything, right? And passive listening is something like hearing, where message is not properly decoded, right? It is something more than hearing, and it is less than active listening. So message is not decoded properly, and that type of listening is passive listening. Coming to the next point, you see here active listening includes three important constituents. There are three elements of active listening. First is responding, reacting, answering verbally and non-verbally. So these are the 3 points. If these are the points there in your listening, it means that you are an active listener. Therefore, active listening can be identified by some non-verbal cues like a smiling face. When someone is listening, he would have a smiling face. He will make proper eye contact and he will reflect that yes, he is listening too. On the other hand, he is very much positive towards listening, and the speaker identifies yes, he is the person who is listening properly. And the another is questioning. When you listen, you ask the questions. So these are some of the elements of active listening. Coming to the another point, there may be once again a question. Suggest some steps to become an active listener. So in any form, there may be a question on this topic. So very simple points are there. Concentrate. Yes, you have to concentrate. Or if one wants to be a good listener, he has to concentrate, right? This is the art he has to learn. He should have interest also, because it is only interest that can motivate him to listen more. If he is not interested, then he would not pay much attention to. He won't be a good or active listener. Pay attention to pronunciation. Yes, it's very important. Pronunciation plays a very important role. Some people don't understand the things and they lose their interest because they don't understand the accent of the person. So pronunciation becomes very important, and for that, one has to pay attention towards the pronunciation, the voice modulation, and the mouth mechanism of the speaker, what he is speaking. So that is important thing. Communication audios and videos. In order to become an active a listener or a good listener, one has to work hard. One has to learn the structure of the language. One has to learn vocabulary, many more things he has to learn. So, in order to improve all these things, he listens to various audios and videos. This is also one of the steps to become an active listener. Yes, this is a book which is available on Amazon. You can purchase it if you want a detailed description on that. There is a lot to speak on listening skills, but we have limited this video to the important points only. Thanks of reading. There is no end.